Welcome to Appointing the Wise, a podcast where we discuss local politics, government, and philosophy so we can be wise and appoint wise men and women to be our representatives in government. Welcome to the podcast today. I've got Jennie Earl here with the Utah State Board of Education.
Thank you.
Is that the right?
That's the right
Okay.
thing. District
Thank
1.
you. District 1, that's right. My representative
Yes.
currently. So welcome. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you.
And just to start us off, tell us about yourself. I don't know, stuff like your background, experience, what led you.
Sure.
And then...
Sure. Okay. Jennie Earl. I represent District 1, which is all of Box Elder, all of Cache County, all of Morgan, Rich, and North and South Summit districts. So it's roughly double the size of a Senate district for a Utah senator.
Okay.
At the state level. And I would say I do have the best district in the state. I literally do. I have loved visiting all around my district, the different schools, working with the different legislators, working with the different superintendents, and with my my parents in this area. So it's an honor to serve here.
So that's not just your mom has to tell you that you're cute kind of thing.
Yeah, no, really, it's not. I am amazed as I go around. I over the last several months visited probably over half my schools. Just gone in and just said, hey, show and tell time, right? How are things going? I've asked about safety. I've asked about things that are working, things they need help with, what kind of supports they're getting, that kind of thing. And just asked some of the there's questions on attendance. That's one thing that's kind of risen to the top of the narrative right now with the legislature. There's a number of bills around attendance and what to do or what not to do. So that's one thing I ask about.
People being absent too much, like children not
Yes,
coming to
chronically
school.
absent.
And is that span K through 12, or is it like more of the what is that?
Yeah,
10 through 12, the high school students?
I mean,
or is it
I
something
think you see more in the upper grades, but yes, it's pretty consistent.
even the younger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and kindergarten's got a high level of lack of attendance, and then it's not as much as you get into the older grades. I mean, the
sick.
Elementary. So, well, I just think it's they're little and families are busy, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. One of the interesting things, just as I've talked, I was going where we've kind of got off there, but one of the interesting things as I talked to some of my schools and such is that they're finding that a lot of families are going on vacations. They're going on sports trips, right? I know of a young woman this week that is gone all week, even though last week she wasn't in school either, for a soccer tournament down in St. George. So these are going on all day during the school day. It's not just spring break. It's not, so now it begs the question, are these families making up the work?
Right. Which are they? Is there academic suffering because of it, or is it?
Yeah.
Or our kids are on top of stuff. They can afford to
that's
a few
true.
days.
I mean, there's a couple of issues there. I think there are a lot of families that are vested in their education and do make sure the work gets made up. That's not all, but it also lends itself to what is the obligation of an educator after having to make up the work and the time that they have to put in. So there's kind of this interesting balance. And I'm not sure what the answer is there. Is just kind of a new...
It's on the radar now.
Phenomenon. Yeah. I mean, COVID kind of said, yeah, we could do it online, or we could, it kind of created this idea of flexibility or options. And I think some families leaned into that, I don't know. We want to make sure kids are getting the best education. So however we can facilitate that. It's just one of those things that kind of rose to the top of the list.
Right. So haven't quite found a solution. Don't know if it needs a solution, but it's something that's a blip on our radar, and we want to make sure.
Definitely. There's a lot of legislation out there right now around definitions and what we should do or shouldn't do. And is there enough if we've got a student who's chronically absent and doesn't have supports? Is there something more that the school should be doing? Or is there something more that we should be doing with parents? It's a good discussion.
Yeah.
There's lots of good things there. So, okay, I'll finish a little bit more background.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I know that
and we can lean into whatever you want.
We're a teacher. Are you currently a teacher?
I currently teach.
Okay.
Yep, I have a teaching degree. from Weber State. I have a master's degree from Weber State from a lot of years ago. I taught special education for a number of years and then kind of followed my husband as he went to school. I followed him, and we raised 6 kids. And then as my kids were going through the system, I know, I love it. It's the best. Really, it is. I love large families. I love just the difference of all my children. And that lends itself to what I did with education, because we did what was ever best for the child that year. And sometimes it was a homeschool. Sometimes it was a charter school. Sometimes it was our public schools. And I'm from Morgan area. And we had...
Is that where that all took place then? It was
yes,
within the
yes,
Morgan school district?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And so it was more dependent on the child and what they needed that year versus I don't like this or I do like that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it was,
we're like, I'm not going to school anymore. I'll do it at home.
Yeah, it wasn't that at all. It was,
fair.
what did this child need this year? And that was the decision we made. So I had experience in a lot of different educational settings. And I currently teach just at a private school. I teach 1 math class in the morning. Love it. It's the best thing I do all day. And anyways, that's great. So
that's cool. That'll keep you grounded, I'm sure.
Yeah,
right? You're not too far. You don't run into the too far away from the constituents or what the real world looks like still, right?
Yes.
Has that been pretty consistent? You've been in the game for...
Well, not just that, but I haven't done it the last couple of years. I've been on I'm in my 2nd term on the state school board.
Okay.
And I wanted to get into this school, so I would volunteer 1 day a week for like 4 or 5 months, and I was able to go into classrooms. And specifically, I love middle school math. Some people think that's crazy, but I love those kids that age. It's a great group of kids. They are just interesting. They are, they're trying to figure out who they are. And you can actually tell a little bit of a humorous joke in there, and they get it.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
But they're not so big or so I know everything yet, and they're just good kids. I've really just loved that age group. But I volunteered. I volunteered for 1 year up here in Box Elder, 1 year up in Logan District, and 1 year in Cache. Just as much as I could. Legislative session always has some kind of time constraints and such.
Oh, so that was something that you could still do. It wasn't
I'd go on Monday.
But you were there consistently. It could have been
usually every week for a period of maybe 4 or 5 months. I didn't usually the beginning of the year I didn't start, and the end of the year I didn't, because it's just they're doing testing and finishing up things, and and then I just said whatever you need help with, I'm here, because I wanted to see application of policies in the classroom and how things were going.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
you get feedback and be like, hey guys, we might need to tweak some of this stuff.
Yeah, but it wasn't feedback to the school, because I felt like I was there as a service, and that would be a disservice to do that, if that makes sense. But
but taking it back to the state level and be like, hey, here's what I've seen.
Yep.
We could maybe tweak this, because I could see how this could cascade into issues.
Or I could see things. Yeah, it was very good, and I appreciated the classrooms that I went into. Great educators doing good things. So, let's see what else.
Background. So you tell me a little about background, experience, what led you to the school board, and what keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah, so I got involved locally with school policies, and I'd kind of say I kind of cut my teeth on that, right? Because I learned what was not effective. And I'll share just a couple of those. Maybe there's some little secrets out there. Some of the things that are not effective is to go in attacking people personally.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a good idea. It does not go well. You don't form any relationships, right? But I did do that, and I learned that strange people won't work with you when you do that. And I learned that if you want to find solutions, you first of all, you do research. You have to know what you're talking about. You can't just go in and start making accusations. I feel like a lot of people...
Not just complaining about things, but having
I feel like a lot of news does that now. They don't really do the research they used to do a news report. It's just, what's the hype going on right now? And so, I would read the policies, tried to understand the laws behind them and how they went into effect. And then I would also then try to create... If I went in advocating for something, I would try to provide a solution to it. It wasn't just simply, this is really bad policy, or I don't like the way this is turning out in my kids' schools. It was, This is a concern I have. Here's the reasons why I have the concern. And here's the research I found around it or the state law associated with it. And I would really love it if you guys did the X, Y, and Z, right? And I'll give you just a simple example. I know
please.
one of the surveys that's administered throughout the state, when it was first administered in our community, they were not getting parent consent. And we went in, there was a couple other moms went in and advocated for, the concerns over the survey, concerns of the content, and then also, you need to actually allow us access to the survey, and we should be giving parent consent on this because it's actually asking about personal
Yeah, what are you
things,
asking
which
my
is
kids?
protected by law.
Yeah.
But we had to know the law, so I learned to kind of read through laws and stuff. So, and then I became what I'd call a citizen lobbyist, which anybody can do. You just read the bills that are out there right now. You can go down to the legislature, stand outside the door of the floor of the House or the Senate. You can send a text in and say, hey, my representative currently is Representative Oxier, so I could text her intern and say, I'm a constituent, I'm outside of the floor. If you could come out for just a couple minutes, I want to share something related to Bill 123, right? And so I learned that, strangely enough, people actually listened. I think we think sometimes that's not the case, but that hasn't been my experience.
And you don't know that until you try it, because I'm learning that now. How easy it is to get a hold of somebody to be on my podcast. Like, I don't know you, but sure, I'll be on. Like, wow, that was easy.
You got to be a genuine person reaching out and saying, hey, I have some genuine questions. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I found, is that it wasn't as closed off as I thought. And so because of that, you begin to know people, and they'll call you and say, hey, I'm following this education policy. Have you read this bill and this bill? Yes. I would recommend this and this. This is better for data privacy or, whatever standards or whatever. And so before long, you can find that you can make small incremental improvements to a system, and one interesting thing, I find this interesting, is that our system, which is so beautifully designed, by the way, but our system is a system of human engagement.
Mhm.
It's not a system of perfection. And I think often we think, oh, if it's not a perfect law, or if it's not a perfect rule or policy or whatever it is, that gets passed by either local school board, county council, all the way up, that if it's not perfect, then it's no good.
Mm.
But remember that it's consistent of people we elected, and they're coming from their perspective, from people that have engaged with them, right? And so I think they're doing the best with the knowledge they have. Once in a while, you'll find someone you're like, oh, well, that's he's here for his own purpose, or she's here for her own purpose, really, right. Not really to serve the people and or constituents or whatever. So, anyways, yeah.
No, that makes sense. And as you're saying that, I was thinking of the people that I like best, right? The founding fathers, and you think of, and they didn't have it perfect, and they were, I think, smarter than I am, and and I think they were driven by principle, but they still, there were things that they didn't foresee. I think that the Constitution was a pretty awesome thing, but I think I think it wasn't perfect, and I think it's probably as close to it as they could get, and they built it. I think maybe what you were alluding to, even within Utah's government, is that there are mechanisms that you can use to tweak it to get it closer and closer, and we kind of are figuring it out as we go.
And you have to be vigilant, because you can easily, one bad law, not knowing the consequences always, can go into effect, and then it takes years to find out that effect and then to change it back or to remove it. And we've had that happen.
Not do it haphazardly.
But it's once again, which is the beauty of our system. What it's saying is that the people can engage, and we're imperfect people, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, we make decisions, and we have to make decisions because we're a civil society and we want to get along with each other and figure out how to do that in a way where we're not infringing on the rights of everyone, right? But also that we're contributing in a way that helps our families, helps our communities, right? And sustains our ability to work and provide for our families and others. But that's just, we just have to remember, it is a human system. You're going to find errors. So, and when you find those errors, it's, engaging with people. It's not corruption, so to speak. It's a system of humanity, and that we're going to see those. As a matter of fact, one of the concerns I've seen this over the years, probably the last 4 or 5 years, is where someone comes in and they want to fix it so that no one can make any mistakes in the system, right? I mean, the law's got to be so tight. And in the process of doing that, you're almost giving up. Yeah, you see where I'm going? You're giving
I
up.
was a teacher for 5 years, and I know how well that works.
Yeah, and you made it so that no one can make
kids are good at poking holes and be like, oh, he said I could do this. You didn't say I couldn't do this. You didn't say I couldn't, X, Y, or Z. And they find loopholes all the way around, and people will do that. So, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You have to have a baseline of, hey, we're all in this together.
The common decency.
And if you're not going to play by any rule, I can't make any rule to handle these people. We just have to figure out a deal with them. Most people, you could be like, okay, here's how things are going to work. Here are the game rules, and we got to just figure that out.
That's where the expectation needs to be. You lay out a clear expectation, right?
Right.
And then that expectation, from there, you deal with situations as they come up. But you want to have what I would consider a sound foundation, so to speak, to work from.
Yeah. Shared principles.
Yeah.
Values.
Shared principles, those idea of justice, the idea of fairness, right? The idea of integrity. So all those things, and when someone gets it wrong, the ability to let them.
Humility.
Yeah, the humility,
hey,
but also to allow
bad,
changes to be made, and for them to go, gosh, you know what? I didn't do that quite right. I can see clearer and allow the change. But those are principles that we established in our Constitution, that idea of humanity, right? It is a humanity constitution as much as, anyways.
And are you talking about, sorry, I've only since recently started to dabble in the state constitution. Are you talking state or federal or both?
Oh, I would say the federal, but the state constitution, a lot of the language replicates the federal, right? So, I mean, you're going to find it in both, right? Those ideas of just that, protecting the rights, protecting, and particularly for me, I want to make sure that families are protected, and ability for parents to govern in their home, govern it in a self-governance type of a thing, and how to teach their children and make decisions for them.
What you were able to do yourself is like, maybe I need to homeschool Bobby.
Yeah.
But Sandy's got to go to school because she needs to socialize or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever.
Her friends are there, and she's not going to survive at home. Or maybe the teachers can do something that I'm not able to, right? Something like that. But you have to have the flexibility and the freedom to be able to do so, instead of, here's the box, all of you fit in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, good luck.
Yeah. No, that's
right?
exactly right. Yeah. And we have, this year, right, 250 years since the Declaration of Independence. We're looking at a birthday, 250-year birthday. Incredible, right?
Yeah.
So good stuff going on this year. There's lots of great things happening. So I encourage everybody to get involved. I know there's I'm just advocating for this. There is a Constitution Bee out there. If you have kids that are interested in participating in that, there's also essay contest. I know the state board is actually doing one. I don't have all the details on it right now, but I will put it on my website as soon as I get that, so that anybody can, submit for those. And I know that there's some state level essays too. So I would encourage everyone, get out there, be part of what's going on, right? Let's enjoy and celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. I've tried to put on our Facebook page some of that information. If you have any links, I'll put those in the description and put them on my Facebook page as we get this out. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. And it's almost like there's so much stuff you have to kind of figure out what applies to you. Like, how close am I to that thing? How big of a deal is it? Should I take a day off from work so I can go be at wherever this big, historic thing's going to be happening?
The point is to take your family and be part of it with your family. It's not enough for us adults to get excited and do this. We have to educate the rising generation on what is unique about us.
Yeah, absolutely.
About Americans, right?
I will advocate. I've been watching Liberty's Kids. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. Dude, it's great. I got sucked into the plot line pretty hard when I was watching it with my son. So
okay, there you go.
We occasionally would watch that in my class when I was a teacher. But anyways, so yes, absolutely. One thing I wanted to get to especially is, I think we touched on some of this, but maybe you can go into it a little bit more, is what principles guide you as you're fulfilling your role on the board, just saying, hey, these are my like prime principles. I won't ever go against these. And maybe I have to follow this principle to where it gets me in a difficult situation, but it's kind of what I've got to do. Does that make sense? I'm just wanting to,
Yeah,
but the way my wife, when I was asking
yeah,
about, hey, what should I ask? We're just like, hey, what lines are you willing to cross? What ones aren't you willing to?
yeah.
And so do with that what you will.
Okay, I mean, let me just share a couple of things. One of those, I have great concerns over privacy, and specifically children's privacy in the state of Utah. That's a big one for me. Is where's the data coming from? Where's it going? Who has access? Ed tech. We did an ed tech study with BYU and internet safety labs, and we found that a lot of these ed tech companies, they have what's called a DPA, data privacy agreement, and under what they call Exhibit B. So to get a little technical terms here, but under Exhibit B, they say what they're collecting, and then they can't sell it. They're not supposed to market it. They're not supposed to give it to ad vendors, right? But we found that there were a lot of them that were doing it, and they were collecting data that they didn't indicate. Some of those were a misunderstanding of terms, but others were, it was concerning. Yeah, we reached out to them and said, hey, we're interested in changing behavior. Will you change your policies and your things? And some of them didn't know too. They were like subcontractors that, maybe it was, and I'm just giving an example, this isn't the right one, but maybe it was a particular writing entity, but then they used maybe the Grammarly or something, something like that. So a subcontractor for their ed tech, provisions. And anyways, so my point in saying this is that we've leaned into that. And there's a lot of bills this year that are leaning into that too, saying, look, you can't sell my students' data. We need to have knowledge. Parents need to be able to opt out of some of these provisions and be in control of that. And then, our kids are not a marketplace.
Right. Yeah. And looking at that, as far as their data, looking at the tech that they're using, I know I've heard things, seen it myself. I know that talking about budgeting and stuff is like, well, I know technology's not cheap. And how much of the tech that we're using is essential to what we're trying to do in the first place? Have you found, I know, again, 5 years being a teacher, that was more than 5 years ago, but like I would use different, things for, like a Google Classroom or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, that was kind of a nice to have. Was it an essential thing? And is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the potential risk worth the trade-off?
I think what we're doing now is and Utah's leading out in the nation with this. We're saying if you're going to do business in Utah, you have to play by our rules.
Okay.
Right? And that would include that data privacy. That includes you can't sell our data, And so we're tightening those provisions up. And I think tightening those up.
Would this be like, so if I want to use an app on my phone, I click the OK, nobody ever reads that. You're saying in order to even able to like advertise your product, you have to follow this. So even if everybody's going to click OK, it follows these lines anyways, and now we don't have to worry about it.
Well, if you're going to use it in our schools.
In our schools, okay, right.
Yeah, because I mean, there's free stuff out there, right, that kids could get on, and that's maybe their own stuff.
Right. But if teachers are going to use it.
The product's going to be used in schools. If a teacher's going to use it and expect a student to use it, then it has to adhere to these things.
And
we're leaning more into that.
On like, hey, well, I found this thing. Like, well, does it follow these?
Well, they're not supposed to. Every district is supposed to, and I think it's called a library. They're supposed to publish what they're using and what's okayed in their district and what there's an agreement on.
Gotcha. So there shouldn't be. Sometimes it happens. We live in a world.
Yeah. But that has been the messaging over the last couple of years is you better make sure it's in your approved agreements, your DPAs.
Have you seen anything from that? Is there something you can speak of specifically? Be like, these guys they had to go back to the drawing board to fix some of this stuff.
Before? Well, yeah, there were a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
There were a whole bunch of them, but I mean, there was cool math games. Not a good. I don't know if there's a handful of them out there that are not. This was one of them that we found was really poor practices. Like they were, and they did go in and clean up their things and said, okay, if you're below 13, you shouldn't be using this. I mean, there were things that they were violating that were, for the younger students, they shouldn't have been engaged in. But a lot of the entities, when we reached out to them and said, hey, we're noticing this trend, is this accurate? They, kind of did their own, and they're like, okay, I guess the point is we want to create better behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And the behavior we want to change is in Utah, you can't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where we're leaning in on that.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
And that leads, we don't pick the technology that's used in schools. That's the different state school board. We may have state contracts. And if we have a state contract, then the state board holds the DPA, so to speak, the data privacy agreement.
And that would be like something that you guys can push to all the schools. Be like, okay, this has our seal of approval.
And usually
use it if you want to. We've already paid for it.
Yes, and they have to adhere to our data privacy items. And it's a good thing.
Pretty rigorous,
right?
Sounds like.
It's becoming more rigorous because the nice thing about this research project is it did allow us to look and say, where's our holes, right? Which is always a great research project, right? Mm-hmm. So anyways, okay. I did want to share, the only thing I wanted to tell you.
One is privacy. That was
that's
talking
good.
about the principal. Back to
the principles. Okay, sorry. And I was going to talk about what the state board does, but we'll do that in a minute.
Yeah, that'll be the next one.
Okay. So I'm getting to your list here. Mm-hmm. One is protecting parents' rights to make decisions for their students, for their children, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a big one. If there's something that is, it's making sure parents know what's going on in the classroom. That's big for me. It's not just knowing, but they're actually making sure that there's consent for certain things like health education, and other things like that, that it's not just someone providing things to your student, that you are actually able to access the information and to review it and then give consent, those kind of things.
Right. We've heard, I would call them horror stories of things of teachers influencing children elsewhere. I don't know, Utah, wherever, but things like, hey, if I was a parent, I would not be cool with that. I feel like it happens in California. That's a generic statement. But that's what you're saying is
fair enough. It could happen anywhere, right?
Right, absolutely.
And we need to be aware of that. Mm-hmm. But that is something I advocate for. I'm a strong advocate of sound standards that teach academic knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that may sound like, are you sure that's a foundational piece? Yeah, actually it is. We teach public students, we teach students in schools, mm-hmm. and we should be providing them with the most information that's the best researched, right? And that has the greatest ability for them to retain and gain the content to be successful. So for me, standards need to be clear. Mm-hmm. They need to be, they need to have a depth to them. You need to provide, it's not, we're not just anything out there, right? That they should be very centered on, for example, we included in our ELA standards the seminal documents of the United States, right? Okay. But you're thinking, okay, well, what about in kindergarten? Well, yeah, but you can teach about the flag. You can teach about, right? These things need to be taught about.
We go over the Pledge of Allegiance.
You're not reading the Constitution to them, but you probably are teaching them about, you can use resources that are going to teach them about some of the key figures, right? So there are.
Who's Ben Franklin? I know they've got great little books that cover that kind of stuff. You can read little biographies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And as they get older, they can learn those pieces. So those are key things as an American. Mm-hmm. That our children need to know and understand.
That's foundational. So, if they don't have that, they're not gonna be able to thrive very well in our society, and our society probably might not thrive very well after the fact as well.
And I would say my other thing is to making sure that teachers have adequate supports, mm-hmm. meaning we're not asking them to do something that we're not providing them the resources to do. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, and there's been a lot of complaints over the last little bit about behaviors in the classroom. And the question is, what can I do? What can't I do? Mm-hmm. Over the last couple of years, I think the legislature has addressed this more and more. It's not a free-for-all in the classroom. Mm-hmm. There are lines that when you cross, a student crosses, that there's consequences for that. Mm-hmm. But even prior to that, it's providing educators with the knowledge on how to structure their classes in a way that they'll be successful.
Yeah, so, I do remember going through trainings. They'd be like, "Ooh, this would be really helpful if I could do this. It would be nice if I could kick out, the kid who's derailing everything.
Well, you need the support there, right?
Right.
Adequate supports from your administration in order for you to have a successful environment in your classroom.
Right. And then I also got trainings to be like, there's about 4 kids that I can make a difference with. I feel like if they're having a bad day, sometimes I have a bad day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm having a bad day. But if I can put those little fires out and I can handle them, then all of a sudden I'm able to still teach.
Yeah, some type of intervention, right?
Yeah.
Some type of intervention that lets all the students be successful.
Yes.
And then the support you need for behaviors that maybe need additional help, right? So
that's rough. Okay. Anything else you wanted to cover as far as principles that guide you?
No, I might come back to that again. I do.
Okay.
If
you think anything,
I will share one other thing, and this, like I said, this is my experience. Is that I think for me, finding a solution. I work with a lot of people. I'm, when someone comes to me, I try to listen to what they're saying and then say, well, what's the issue here? Can it be addressed? Is it my responsibility? That's the other thing. Is it even my responsibility? Sometimes it's not even my responsibility. So it's helping them go to the people that are responsible for whatever it is.
Sure.
So, but it is finding solutions. I do like helping find solutions, which is why you have representatives, right? Is to find solutions and help address things and move things forward. There's always going to be a new trend. I mean, there always has been. You pick the year, you can find a trend, right?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, when I teach math. So this is 6, 7, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
We're not going to talk about multiplication tables of 6 or 7 this year. We're just you get that in high school.
No, well, my junior high students made the most of that, right? And anyway, it was okay for a while, and then they got sick of it. The others were like, please do not. We don't want to do that. But I did make errors on that, meaning going 6 out of 7, and I'm like, oh no, I did it. Yeah, I did it. So I tried to be a little bit more thoughtful, but no, like I said, there's trends that go through, but there's societal trends that go through. I mean, we had a trend, that the whole social media thing is things that are trending, and now we know a lot more about the harms that are caused, especially young women who spend a lot of time on certain social media platforms. It really impacts their mental health and their well-being. And even in schools, I'm just sharing in a couple of schools that I've seen that, where they've kind of said, we're not doing the technology from here to here, right? They pretty much banned it most of the day.
Books.
Well, but they banned it most of the day, and I don't know if banned's the right word. They've limited access. That's probably the better word, because I don't know that most of them have banned it completely, but they said, you know what, we got our kids back. Like at lunch, they actually are, and they're like, I had to tell them to get out of the tree. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's okay if they're in the tree. Otherwise there'd be, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they were doing things that kids weren't doing, and they were engaging with one another. And it's
that's so hard.
It was nice to get that back. I mean, I've heard that from a number of people.
I was watching a movie that came out 2005, maybe. It was called Unitards. It was kind of funny. It was done out in Salt Lake somewhere. But I was watching it, and it was like a trip down memory lane, because I was like, that was, I was in school in 2005, and I just did the culture and everything, like nobody had phones. Nobody, like everybody was like, I was like, holy cow, like we've lost something there, and I probably need to do more with that in my family. But it's just
general human engagement. Right?
They're just like, if they all have their phones, if they're texting, if they're like, there's, like you said, climbing trees, like they might be getting into some trouble, but it's kind of like, what was it, the line from Sandlot, right? Like, get into a little bit of trouble, not too much.
But I think that is exactly right, because if you don't do that, you're risk adverse. Like, you don't want to risk things, because it's easier to sit behind something else and say, oh, actually, I want to break up with you on a phone, right? Instead, when you have to actually go engage with someone and say, look, this isn't working for me. I mean, we've all had it happen, right? Can we just be friends? And it's hard. Yeah, well, it's hard to receive it, but it's part of that growing that is normal.
It's even just talking to other people. It's not even like, having a conversation with your friend. You're just like, this is hard. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, we have to have hard conversations
Yep.
with other people, moms, spouses, kids. And it's just like, if you don't get practice at it, then you have an aversion to it. And you got to figure it out. So,
Yeah, I'm just saying what I've witnessed and what I've seen firsthand and from talking to others is that we've been able to regain childhood in some ways, right? And that relational piece. So,
that's
yeah.
pretty cool. I'd love
Anyways,
to
it's
see
good.
anything about that as far as like a case study and say like, hey, here's what we did. If other schools want to replicate it, be like, hey, maybe.
Well, it is in the state of Utah,
Yeah.
you can now use the law to say we're going to restrict throughout the day. And I think they're trying to come up with some stricter provisions there.
Mhm.
I mean, there are reasons for some students to have it. I have a child who's diabetic, so
Mm,
they use it to check their, numbers and stuff. So there's some reasons for that.
yeah.
I just think if we can get kids back in front of, educators, number one, not in front of TVs
Hmm.
and screens or technology. Let's get our educators back where they go.
Yeah, I don't have to have.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the trend now? I don't have to be watching somebody play a video game to be able to focus on information about something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's fair.
So,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's cool that that's happening. I'd love to hear more about that or see more of that because I think a lot of parents are like, yes. Like I said,
Mhm.
I'd love to go back to 2005 where I know I'd be giving up a lot of technology, ChatGPT, all sorts of stuff, but I
Yes.
know like you have to read books and there's going to be more focus on that. And I don't know, we don't have to be that
Yeah, yeah.
dead, but you know what I mean? So yeah. And if you do think of any other principles
Yeah,
as we're
yeah,
going,
as
feel
we go
free to
along,
weave those in.
those are some that just stood out to me, so
So what does the school board do? What is its purpose? And I guess tied into this is what don't they do? What isn't their purpose that maybe you've run into confusion
yeah.
about? But
Well, let me, I'll just tell you what we do. I mean, we have general oversight and supervision of the public education system in Utah. And with that being said, there's specific provisions that we're in charge of. Standards, we set standards for math, science, language arts, right? English language arts. Um, we
so I've got
mhm.
kids in elementary. Acadience, the whole
That's a test.
yeah, is
That's
that
a measurement
would
test.
that be
That we
something
we
you're
do
familiar
have
with or
yes, we would encourage certain assessments that we could do comparisons. So Acadience is one of those. We do end of the year testing. Um,
they've
and
moved away from, and this again may not be your thing, but I know that
hmm.
when I was in school, we did A, B, C, D, E, F again, with or A, B, C, D,
Yeah,
the
no,
grades.
the
Is
the
that
testing is could be a little different from that. You may have to write or in the computer put something in.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
It might, maybe I'm just in elementary because my kids are in
Yeah.
elementary. That's where my experience is.
Well, we don't
They
do
don't have like A, B, C scores and stuff. It's just like, hey, here's where you are
Oh,
relative to your
yeah,
peers. When I
gotcha.
have parent teacher conferences, they're like, hey, he's well above or whatever it is
Yeah,
in
they're gonna give you
reading
an
or
idea
something.
on the screening, right? Usually
Yeah.
they're screeners, not necessarily.
But I haven't been given like
Yeah.
he's got an A plus, and I don't know if is that an elementary thing. I'm just not running into
It
it
just
yet, or
depends on the school district on
okay,
how they choose to grade.
okay,
There have been some what I'm calling equity grading systems out there
okay.
that we're not finding to be effective, and
Hmm.
those were systems where y- you got credit for something and if you didn't do it. For example, everybody got 50% on a quiz even if you didn't take it
Hmm.
because they wanted it. Anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of interesting practices that kind of have gone through the system in the name of equity.
Sounds like a lot of participation trophy stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of where it lent itself. But I think that, I think where it's moved over the last few years is to telling parents where students are and what they're succeeding in. So just depending on how every district is going to be a little different, or every LEA is the local education agency.
Okay.
District would be
So even
refer,
schools and charter schools and stuff are gonna
yeah,
kind of have
district
their own.
charter school. So if I say LEA, that's kind of encompassing of all. So um, the other thing we do is we set standards. We do assessments, state assessments. We run the assessments. We have a team there that looks at the data and publishes that. We have uh, we do teacher licensing. We're in charge of setting the requirements for teachers, working with higher education to establish that, and then making sure that the teachers are qualified that go into the schools. And then we're also in charge of UPAC, which is the Utah Professional Practices for Teachers, right? So if there's a violation of a teacher practice, let's say a teacher took money, right, wrongly or chose to skim some money off the top of a contract or something, or maybe they were given students answers for the end of year assessment, or maybe they disclosed personal information they shouldn't have disclosed. Those would go through what we call UPAC, which is our professional practices. They would look at it, compare it to our rules, look at how, did they violate this? And if they may put a warning on their file, or we may suspend their license, or flat out revoke it, right? So what happens is we have a group of educators and other professionals that look at those. They make a recommendation to the board. Then the board will either accept that or ask them to do some additional review.
Okay, so if a teacher in Utah runs into an infraction of that gets passed all the way up to you guys at the state board?
Yes, if it's an educator and they violated we have professional practices, and if they violate that, then yes, it would come.
So you'd be
to
the
us.
Judges to decide whether
we would be the end result, right? We would have this professional team, so to speak, that looks at it. We have some attorneys that work there and kind of work back and forth with the district, and then the end result, whatever the end decision is, would come to us.
Gotcha.
If it had what they felt like enough information to move forward.
Okay.
Sometimes there's not enough for that. So,
right.
But
innocent until proven guilty, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give due process to everyone, right? You
right.
can't just, that's the way we work.
Right.
Right. So, but we do have, over the last couple of years, what we've increased is we do have a hotline at the state board level. And so if there is a violation of rule or law, we can, it can be turned into our hotline. We usually refer that back to whoever the responsible party is. Mm-hmm. If it's a district, we'll send it back there and ask them to respond to the accusation or to do some investigation. Depending on the level of it and depending on what it is, right?
So we may send the problem with them themselves.
Yep, we may send it right on to Utah UPAC, right, to be investigated. Or sometimes we get anonymous ones that we don't have enough information because they're anonymous. We can't do anything with it, right? We and we'll, yeah. So
use too much with the anonymous tip.
Well, we can if there's enough information to go on, right? If someone calls in and says, "Hey, I witnessed this with a teacher, I don't know, maybe there is some violation where I don't know, it could be sexual in nature, right? I mean, that kind of a thing. We wouldn't probably just drop that. We would send that back to the district and say, hey, we've had an anonymous complaint. Can you please pursue this? And, we'd have to have enough information to pursue it, though.
That makes sense.
So that is if you're calling in and want to make sure something gets pursued, give us enough detail that we can actually investigate. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So standards is one of the things that you do.
We do standards.
You do
licensing. We write rules. So when the legislature passes a law and it becomes, or a bill and it becomes law, and the governor signed it, right? Then what we do is we take that law and we look at it and we say, okay, does there need to be further clarification on this? Is this understandable for our local LEAs? And if it is, then we might not make a lot of adjustments. If it needs further clarification, like maybe it's a financial thing, if there's a grant associated with it, and they've asked us to spell out what would be on the grant application so that we could measure who gets the money.
Okay.
So, maybe it's jump ropes or something, right? So we might put in there how many students do you have, and what's your interest level or grade level? We probably wouldn't send 30 jump ropes to 12th grade. Maybe we would, but do you know what I mean? So we'd put provisions in there, kind of a thing.
You're trying to figure out,
and that's you
have some latitude to figure out.
Yeah. So then we would write the rule. The rule goes to, and I'll tell you our process so that people are familiar with that. We meet 2 days a month. The first day we meet is the first Thursday of every month, and then on that day is our actual board meeting, and that's when we pass the rules in their final form. And we'll look at the budget. The budget's open and transparent. You can go through it and look through all of our Scott Jones, our deputy superintendent of finance or operations, he lists all those things out so people could go in and see where everything's going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's available there. And we have a consent calendar. We have the items that have come out of, we have 3 committees that we pass things. Actually 4, we just added a new committee, but we have the law and licensing.
Mm-hmm.
We have the standards and assessment, and then we have finance. And I'm
Your
on standards and assessment. Yes. So we'll pass that first day, that first Thursday, we pass all the items that have come, or make amendments and change it and, pass things there. And then on Friday is our committee meetings. And those are the things coming up for the next month. So what we'll do is we'll discuss them there. We might make amendments. We might make suggestions. Sometimes we'll even hold a rule in committee because we had a lot of public comment and we wanted to take some additional thoughts into consideration. Or maybe we didn't get enough comment yet, or maybe it's ready to go. And then that would move to the board the next month, and that would be on our main board meeting. So there's
to the next step.
Yeah. And let me just tell the public, you can, we have several opportunities for public comment. Mm-hmm. So during our actual board meeting, there's a 30-minute block of window that we set aside for 2-minute public comment. So if there's anything that we have going on that day that you wanted to comment on, you could call down at the state board and call in and say, hey, I'd like to get my name on the list to do public comment. You can come by Zoom. You can either respond by Zoom or in person.
Okay.
Which is nice. The legislature started doing that a couple of years ago, and it's nice if you can't get to a legislative meeting and you wanted to give public comment, you can get on their Zoom and just indicate that you'd like to speak. And I think that's something you can live anywhere in the state.
Far away in Utah that them to go.
You can, and so anywhere you can live anywhere in the state and get on if you can access. You know what I mean? If you had computer access, and we'll take public comments also during our committee meetings. So if there's something in committee meeting, for example, we're looking at mass standards over the last little bit. If there's something you wanted to comment on, you could call and say, I'd like to make a public comment on the standard or this rule. And then we'd give you time to, usually 2 to 3 minutes is normally what we do.
Gotcha.
But you can always write in as well. So, and especially if you're writing in to someone that you're a constituent of, put it in your line, board member Jennie Earl, right? I'm constituent from, where do you live?
River County, yeah.
Yeah, wherever you live. And then it lets me know, constituent from Morgan, constituent from Rich County. And here's my thoughts. I got a lot of constituent emails a couple weeks ago they've asked us to do budget cuts, 5% budget cut. And there were some pieces that people were really passionate about. Arts in the schools. Mm-hmm. Beverly Taylor Sorensen, a lot of people said, please don't cut that. And we do know that the arts education helps develop minds in a way that helps them learn in other areas. So I do love the arts. The other one was, oh goodness, what was the other? There were a couple of other ones on there that people sent a lot of emails on. Mm-hmm. I'm not remembering right offhand. Sorry.
No worries.
Give me a minute. I'll think of it. So anyways, that's our meetings, and we meet. Yeah. The only month we usually don't meet is July.
Okay.
But our work really we're busy now with the legislature going on because we do get a lot of questions around bills.
How is this new law going to impact?
Yes, and does it need to be adjusted at all? Mm-hmm. Right. I've had a couple people. This is always interesting to me. They're like, "Well, it's in law." That's what they'll tell me. It's in law. Yeah. And I have to remind them, the law is only the law till the next legislative session, mm-hmm. right? And
we can amend that.
That's right. If there's something that we didn't get right, or they didn't get
always
right,
perfect either,
right? Yeah. So it's only the law till the next legislative session. It isn't set in stone actually, and most of the bills that are run through, sometimes like we ran one today that was a cleanup bill, it just clarified some language. Mm. So it's a bill. We didn't define
this well. We need to make sure that
yes.
There were some weird effects of not having it defined.
Yeah, well. Or it just made it clear, right? Or even in the one case, we had money for suicide prevention that the legislature already had written out, and they said, well, we're supposed to give $1,000 to every school, but if there's not enough money, then do we only give $1,000 to a couple schools? And we just asked that if they chose to keep those provisions in there and they chose to fund it, that that if it's less funding, that we can give less than the $1,000 and spread it around more. So it's just clarifying things like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. So standards. So going into maybe again, as a parent, kind of digging into these standards, looking at, I guess the purpose of the school board is to oversee the districts. Would you call them the DLAs? Did I say that right? The LEAs.
Local education agencies.
Right. So overseeing, like the Box Elder County School District or something like that, right?
Well, I don't really oversee them.
Okay.
They are run by their local board.
Okay.
It's kind of like the federalism thing.
So
right?
you oversee like the board of the school board?
I don't oversee their school board. It's just public general control and supervision. We do a general control.
Okay.
But I don't oversee their local school board. Their local school board is run by their president and their vice president and the board members. Okay. They make decisions locally, but the policies that we pass will need to be implemented by those local schools.
Okay.
So let's just take school safety, right? There's been a lot of school safety measures. They will take those school safety pieces and we'll look at them and we'll say, okay, do we need to tweak any of these? Do we need to make it so it's clearer? Do we need the processes clearer? And then once we pass our rules or processes, we will send those to the local schools or the local school board or the superintendent, and they'll look at those and say, what provisions in this do we need to adjust? So maybe it's making sure there's a single entry.
So
or doors locked.
So would you say you're more of a helping with the implementation of, so if the state comes up with a law, it goes through you to make sure it kind of makes sense for the people that are going to actually be implementing it.
Yes.
And in some capacity, you'll be handing down some of these standards as far as math goes. But as far as really the implementation and stuff, that's going to be up to those.
It will be, although like with literacy, we do the legislature put it into a bill a couple of years ago into law, and then my staff have helped with it. But we do want high quality instructional materials. That's huge.
So okay, like the curriculum.
Yeah.
Right?
So
if we're going to use a book in
we
Utah,
don't pick their curriculum, but they do have to have certain pieces in the curriculum in order to be considered high quality instructional materials.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We don't want just any books.
We've learned over the years, which, publishers will sell about anything. Yeah. And then they, put a stamp on it, science of reading or whatever. And yet it doesn't maybe match what the research is saying.
You got to filter through some of that.
Yes. Yeah, so, we don't actually pick the curriculum, but we may make recommendations. These ones are high quality curriculums.
It has to follow these 4 guidelines, or you can't do it. You can the more local areas have more flexibility there, but it has to check these boxes. Otherwise, it's a non-starter.
Yeah, and we really want local schools to know what the research is and make those decisions. So we're giving a framework to work from, so that they have high quality materials.
Gotcha.
So, and we're working on. We've got really good, the state board has changed their mission and vision over the last year and a half, 2 years. Our statement, our mission is let's see if I can do it. So it's organizational, it's academic and organizational excellence, and there's another piece we add recently to it, but it's that idea of academic excellence and organizational excellence. Like we serve districts, right, and schools, LEAs, and we also want to make sure that we're providing you with the best quality information so that we have the highest academic outcomes.
Gotcha.
So, and there's plenty of room to grow in that. I mean, I think you probably saw the article about literacy, and that there's some research out there right now that's saying we're about 50% of our kids are meeting those, that standard at 3rd grade.
Is that because I was looking at, so some of the research I did, I just wanted to come here with stats so that I wasn't totally ignorant as far as that. Trying to see where Utah lands as far as our stats go, and what I was able to get with my own, and then a little bit of AI help, so take it with a grain of salt if you want to. But that Utah seems to be doing pretty well relative to other places, but that on a more objective scale, as far as mastery goes, we still have a lot of room for improvement. Does that sound accurate
Yeah,
to you?
that would be accurate. I think when it comes to our math standards, when it comes to our
Reading.
reading, I mean, if you were to compare us nationally, Utah does really well.
Yeah.
But my argument is I'm grateful we're doing really well, but
Yeah.
I really do want I we shouldn't have kids leaving the system or grade levels who are not able to successfully do the basic things. So
Yeah, absolutely. And 50%, is that a Utah stat or is that a federal, like a
that's that's
national
that's
stat?
our that's our assessment that we give.
Okay, so
So that is
Utah is we're
based on our
50% is pretty
we're saying on
great.
there yeah, I'm trying to get the language right. I probably won't get it right, but that's that grade level measurement. So
Right.
it's not saying that the other kids are failing, but they haven't reached that threshold of success.
Right. And that was something,
So
and again, maybe this isn't a question for you, maybe when I get more to my local
mm,
uh conversations, I guess, is looking at the standards of like reading and that 50% number, like if and I think my school district probably does pretty well because it seems like all they focus on, my son's in like second grade, is math and literacy.
yeah.
And so there's not a lot of room for, getting into some of the other stuff where, as you get into junior high, you get electives, right? Hey, we're going to do welding or whatever. Well, that's great if you can weld. And I know there's people that can be successful at that, but at the same time, you're not going to be reading is so important that it's going to be hard to be successful in a lot of things if you don't have at
Yeah.
least a foundation of some math and some reading. And some people, you know what, maybe that's going to be, and I totally love the blue collar, the welders, my brother's a plumber, like, but you've got to have
We
a
have to have a literate
foundation.
society for
Yeah.
people to still defend their families and rights, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
can't
Absolutely.
function in a society that is not literate.
Right.
Now, with that being
Fair.
said, there's things we do know. Okay,
Hmm.
there's a few things we know.
Yeah.
We know that adults working with children, you have an increase of reading. The smaller the group, like I'm just going to share. I think Box Elder does it, but I know I'm just sharing Cache County because I represent them and I'm familiar with what they do.
Mm.
North Summit does the same things in those younger grades. They've found that if they can bring in with a teacher and support an educator with a couple of paras in that classroom
Mhm.
to help with reading interventions,
Mhm.
that a one-on-one type of a situation, not one-on-one, it would be a small group setting
Mhm.
with students, and helping them be successful with an adult that's listening to them, helping them, that
Right.
has been trained, is it's highly successful,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the 50% is not every school or every teacher or every school even. The 50% is the state average.
Mm.
We have a lot of schools in our state that are 70-80%, right? That's the state. The state average is 50, but what we're seeing is where these pockets of high success are.
And there's a handful of those that
There's more than a
they're
handful.
always going to be below
Oh, yeah.
the root
Sorry, I thought you
level.
meant at the successful
Yeah.
ones. I'm like, we're
So 80
seeing,
is pretty
yeah.
high. I don't know what that number is. I don't know, 5%, 10% that are just always going to be below level because of whatever
There
reason.
will be some,
Circumstances outside their control.
but
Mhm.
I think the research is showing, the science of reading research is showing that the right application of the right type of teaching and the right interventions helps all students. And even
They'll even
those,
be further
yes,
on.
that's
They
right.
may not be third grade, but they may be second and half grade.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, that's fair.
So
Okay.
we're seeing that success rate. We're seeing it in math as well. I'm sharing that because I last spring, or I guess it was last fall, no, it's been a year and a half ago. So I looked at the data of the different schools and the grade levels, and I was looking for the math or the schools that were 20 to 30% different in that grade. So for example, a third grade might be at 70%, and then the grade before it had like 40, and the grade after it had like 30 or 50 or something. So that you could see that it was something that those teachers were doing in that grade level band. And then I
So
called
success.
them
Yeah.
and I said, "Hey, I'm just wondering if I can come visit your classroom. Like there's something you're doing that's different than the other grades.
You're an outlier and we want to
Yeah,
figure
you're
out
an
what
outlier
it
and I want to
is.
know why, and some of those were in high socioeconomic areas. Some of them were not, right? And then when I went out to watch them, it was interesting. There were common threads, right?
Okay.
One of those were clear expectations. Like they had routines within the classroom and the children, there was no confusion about what was next and what they were doing. So those clear routines let the children know that there was what was coming next, right?
Stability.
Yeah, there was stability. It was just a well-structured classroom. And I give this an example. It was a kindergarten classroom. And when they lined up to come into the classroom, those students started singing this math song. And they were counting by tens, right? So they were doing, every minute was spent. It wasn't like it was forced, and it was enjoyable. They went to hang their coats up. They were singing this little math thing. They sat down, and then the whole engagement was it was intentional. It was well structured, and it was intentional. And so they were able to push beyond the standards by the end of the year, enough that the kids learned the standards, but they even went just a little bit further so that it was put into their memory.
They maximized.
Yeah,
all
and they were learning about the science of learning, not reading, but the science of learning, that just to present something to a student is not enough. You have to present it in a way that it can be retained. And that often has a repeat of it, like 2 days later or something. You're re-looking at it.
The forgetting curve, right?
Yep. So, and there's different strategies. I'm not going to go into those, but there's different strategies that help retention, and you can kind of start finding kids that need additional interventions or help. So, anyways, I don't know. It was really interesting to go out and see those.
So you're part of your role, it sounds like, then, is to go out and see what's working and be like, how can we get this diffused to the rest of Utah?
No, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
It's
what was the
what I
purpose of
chose to
doing
do.
that?
I chose to do that. I don't think people had to do that. Does that make sense? It just didn't make sense in my mind to be advocating for new math standards and not know what looked good.
Gotcha.
Where the successes were. I initiated that.
Yourself,
yeah.
So that you can
inform,
make
it's kind of, and I think that's the way I work, is I like to get the research behind it, and I like to understand why we're doing something. Once you understand why, you're better able to help, I think, move things forward. And then you can also understand where other people are coming from if you understand the reason why we're where we're at.
Okay.
Either with successes or even in failures, right? How did we get here?
Yeah.
Right.
So trying to, a lot of the questions I have as an individual, again, maybe are more to the local. So what if somebody, trying to choose who we're going to vote for in the next election, right? And we're looking at the school board. What is a good metric maybe for understanding what your job is and how well that's being done?
For me, or are you talking local board?
No, for you, for looking at the Utah School Board, I don't know that it's clear to me what their job is in a way that I can tell if they're doing a good job. And maybe all of the beef that I have with some of the problems are just more local, and it's not your job to be that person to figure that out. But as a person who's voting, is trying to be informed about that, what job am I looking for my school board? Maybe not just you, but anybody who's up for election is how do I know if you're doing a good job? How do I know what should I be looking for as that caveat or that conduit between the state legislature and the rest of the group? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I would say this. I think a lot of people actually, and as I go around, unless I've worked with people before, they actually don't know what the state board does.
Right.
Right. So often I'll get calls and, it'll be something that is needing to be taken care of locally. But I do feel like that is my responsibility. If a parent calls me, let's just say it's on a library book that they're concerned about the content, right? Okay. If they call me on it, I'm going to provide them. My job, I think, is to provide them with the current law. My job is to say, I could probably find your policy, local policy, pretty quick, and I can find your board members, and I'm going to send you those 3 things.
Okay.
And so you can look at what the process is locally if you want to challenge or have a question about a library book. Here's the people you would talk to. I would always encourage people to go to, if you have a question let's just use this library book situation again, go talk to the librarian that is in your school. If you didn't get, not always the response you want, but if you didn't feel like your questions were answered or you felt comfortable with it, go to the principal. You can always come to me though. Like I don't know does that make sense? Like I feel like I'm the resource for you and I'm going to provide you with the information, but in this case, I don't make that decision. Someone else does. But I would provide you with the resources. So, right. I mean, I don't know if is that person doing their job?
Credit. That sounds like you're you're awesome at trying to make that as easy as possible for somebody. How much would you say that's part of your job?
I don't want to do it and when I say that, I'm not doing it for you. I want you to be the advocate for your child, for the content going on in your schools, for your local decisions. I could step in and say, well, according to the law, you know what I mean? But to me, that's not really empowering people. This is a governance issue for me. And if I can empower a parent or an educator, because I do get calls from educators too, and I'll look something up and I'll provide it to them because I want to empower them to be the voice in their community.
Right. So is that what you would consider part of your job description as somebody who's on the board, or is that just something that you've taken initiative on because you think it's an important resource to be there for the people?
I would say it's part of the job, but I mean, I don't know if everybody does that.
You would expect any other board member to be willing to do that.
I know a lot of board members do because we will communicate. Sometimes I'll get a call and someone will say, hey, I had this come in from a constituent. What do you think the best course of action is, right? Or sometimes I'll reach out to someone else and say, hey, I had this come in from a constituent. What do you think is the best course of action? And sometimes it is at having them call our hotline or go to UPAC or something. It may not just be giving them information to go back and help solve their problems. But I do feel like, an example in Cache County recently, I had a constituent reach out. I listened to her. I provided her with resources. And I said, if you still have questions after you've read their policy and asked for, whatever you needed to do to advocate for your child, if you have additional questions or concerns, you can call me back.
Okay.
Right. And I can call the district and kind of be a middle person if I need to. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened before where I've had to call and say, hey, I've had a constituent reach out. This is the concern. Could you please, here's the phone number. Could you find someone to make sure her issue gets addressed?
Okay. And I assume that can be a way for you to have kind of a pulse of what's going on in some places.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, I've got 4 of these calls. And
If I had
we need to look into this a little bit more.
If I had quite a few.
Is that why that's also part of your job, is that, hey, it's nice to be able to help them. And if they're fumbling around for who I need to talk to, well, I know that person A, B, and C can be the people that are kind of the real people you need to go to that have control over that situation. But now I'm aware of what's going on. And if there's something you can do, you obviously would do that. But that's not always.
Keep in mind, it's really hard for a parent to go in and say something in the first place.
Right.
It's hard for them because often they love their educator. Often they, you know what I mean? They don't want to be the complainer, so to speak.
Right.
And so for them to even be engaging in it, you have to recognize that was probably a difficult thing. And that's the same with educators. For them to actually say, look, I've hit a wall here. I need some help. And it's,
it's crossed the threshold into I need to talk to somebody and I know who that is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
how much of your, again, looking at your job description, so that, again, we as constituents know what to come, it sounds like
I think you would look at standards. Okay. I think I would be careful about going off of a lot of hype on social media because you're maybe not going to get an accurate representation. I would call me, right, and ask. You can call your superintendents in the area and ask if they've been supported. Call people that have been in the in the trenches, so to speak, and ask about that. So,
that's fair. Hey,
yeah,
I know this guy's probably in charge. Let's call that guy and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And if I don't like that answer, that I call
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying if you're trying to, I am open to discussions about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Mhm.
The interesting thing once again is that often I get called on decisions that are really localized. They're not state level decisions, but once again, I'm always open to providing them with how to find things. They're not sure where to look on their policies. And I've done enough policy looking that even if I haven't gotten on their site before, I'm like, okay, I know what this will look like. So I can do it within 10 minutes. What might take someone a couple of hours to try to figure out, navigate sites, right?
Yeah,
That kind
you've
of a
got the
thing.
tricks of the trade.
So,
Be like, here's what you're looking
well, at
for.
least I know what I'm looking for, so I can easily send it on to them.
Okay.
So, and hopefully, maybe if things are all going well, they don't even need to know. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I mean, we have great people on the board. We're doing great work. Over the last 2 to 4 years, we've been doing exceptionally good work, is what I would say. We've got a lot of diverse personalities, right? And I've had people say, should you be partisan or not partisan? Partisan elections makes it so that it's more, I don't know if toxic's the right word, but there's a lot of noise, right? I would just say I'm open to I'm grateful for the ability for people to share their opinions, but if someone's opinion does not make something fact either, right? And there's a lot of floating opinions out there. Take a minute and call someone. Find out what's really going on.
Yeah.
Don't just take someone's opinion, even if it's very loud, very open.
I remember. I think this is probably true. I thought of it years ago, and I'm sure lots of people did. Is when you're on Facebook and it's April 1st, and you're like, oh, it's April 1st. I can't listen to anything right
Oh
now.
yeah,
You're like, maybe have that attitude on every day and be like, ooh, if this were April 1st, would I believe this? Or I need to dig in a little bit deeper to see if is this hitting my personal kind of buttons and being like, oh yeah, man, I've traveled that path so many times before that I'm just wanting to go down that war path, or is there something I'm missing I need to dig in before I
well,
get all fired up?
let me hit a little bit of something that I've come to realize over the last little bit. Like, I don't know. I heard someone call it, and I can't remember who it was, called the Great Awakening. And it kind of went through a lot of society, higher ed, and it went through education. And maybe some people would say there's still elements of it there.
Yeah.
But
rooting it out would be difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah, or at least I don't know if rooting it out's the issue as much as creating correct principle, right? Correct understanding of things. But it was interesting. It's about during COVID time. Right before that, I had a couple of people call me and say, "Hey, we're seeing these books." This is before people were talking about critical race theory, but they called me and said, "Hey, we've seen these books in the school. We've got some administrators reading them." It was Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist and White Fragility. I'm trying to remember the author there.
Angela something, maybe. What is their name?
No, I don't know if it's. No. Anyways, yeah. So I said, okay, I wasn't real familiar with that term at the time, and I think most people weren't. And I said, well, okay, I'll order those books, and I ordered some other books around that same type of genre, right? And it didn't take too long. I was like, this is just cultural Marxism. It's cultural Marxism. It doesn't, you know what I mean? I was like, I didn't know it by the title.
Yeah.
But then I started noticing the interesting thing is you had critical race theory, you had critical feminist theory, critical fat theory, right? All these critical theories, right, floating out there. And before I'm like, okay, they follow the same. It was like a pattern. You find an error in society, right? And we can see evidence of racism, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see that. But you find an error, you hyperinflate it, you make it sound like it's everyone, right? It's everywhere, everyone. And then you label it. And then, the intersectionality, where you've got your oppressors on top and the oppressed on the bottom.
Yeah.
So you have this kind of idea of this victimhood type thing and the oppressors and oppressed. And what I noticed is that it wasn't to get rid of that. It was just to rotate it.
There's a hierarchy. Yeah, we have a new hierarchy.
Yeah, so now it's the ones on the bottom are now on the top. And so we're going to you didn't change anything, right? And so
we're just shuffling things around.
Yeah, you still had someone being oppressed and someone, so it didn't really solve a problem. And then you present yourself as the answer. I'm the solution to this problem, right? I mean, that was Ibram Kendi. He was the solution to the problem, and others, right?
For a fee, of course.
Yeah. So the solution to the problem, and then almost like they were the savior to come in, but the only thing we can do is tear everything down, right? Which then you're into the Marxism, right? You tear it all down, and when we build it up, this time it will be utopian. And I believe utopia means no place, nowhere kind of a thing, right? That idea that it doesn't ever exist. And the reason why it doesn't exist, because we're humans.
Because we're human.
This is we're back to that human system where we started, right? Yeah. That we're humans in a human system. But the interesting thing was, I looking at all these things, and I could kind of break it down into patterns, right? Or mantras, right? Whatever you want to call that. But then I started seeing it in other arenas too. Like where it wasn't limited to race. It could be, you could find an error in the system, hyperinflate it, whatever it was, right? And then you would label it, and before long you were attacking people, and it wasn't really a solution. It was just more Marxism, right? So I think people have to be cautious of that. There's plenty of errors in our system, right?
Right.
We have to acknowledge those errors. If there is a problem going on, or if we've made some kind of a overcorrection or whatever, we need to address it, right? In education, that I agree with that too, that we need to correct what's going on. But the problem is when we start, once again, attacking one another instead of attacking the problem and not really looking for solutions, what you end up with is people attacking one another.
Yeah, division.
Right? Division, hate, right? And a dislike for each other. Anyways, those are a couple of things I've seen. You had something on here about misperceptions. It's interesting. I think we saw this trend, and maybe it's still going on. I'm hoping it's not. I think schools kind of tightened up on this with the furries in schools, right?
Oh, yeah. There was there were bathrooms in some schools that they had litter boxes for the furry kids.
Not true.
That's never happened in Utah. Is what you're saying?
I don't have any idea. I'm not saying there's never's never. Now I have. Every
it
time
wasn't coming from the top down.
So here's what happened. Here's what happened. And not here's what happened.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I would get a call saying, "Oh, this school district or this school." What did I do? I immediately called them, right? I'm like, I'm going right to the source.
What's your policy on using the bathroom?
Yeah, I'm like, do you guys have a litter box in your school? Can I come check it? Who told you that?
Yeah.
Right? No, what health department in the state of Utah is going to allow, I mean, just think about that, a litter box in the schools. Did we have problems with kids dressing up and then pretending they're out? Yes. Once again, was it everywhere? No. But did it need to be? That is, the behaviors there are concerning, right? Because it was creating an environment that was disruptive to the learning environment. And so, those things, and I think a lot of our districts now are like, look, we're not
playing the game.
We're not even going there. I don't know what this is, but we're not going there.
Okay.
We're here to learn. You can, whatever you do on your free time is your own business, but here at the school, we're creating an environment where kids can learn.
Right.
And that's what we should be doing, right? We should be doing that. So that's just one that I've heard floating around, that every time I heard that, I went immediately.
Which school?
And checked it out. Tell me, I want the school or the teacher, I want the principal, and I'll call it today.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it anywhere. So it was just,
Question, just to follow up.
Yeah.
It would be, my immediate response would be like, well, if they were doing it and they maybe thought they shouldn't be, how truthful might they be or not truthful if you were asking, right? Self-reporting isn't 100%
right.
effective.
I mean, that's true. That is true. But I think you could have called the health department and they would have shown up. And do you know what I'm saying? I don't know anywhere that the health department would have allowed that to take place. I mean, I didn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere.
The janitor would be like, I'm sick of dealing with cleaning litter boxes.
Well, I didn't see it anywhere. If someone called me on it, I would immediately respond.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like that
this needs to be nipped.
It needs to be. If it is happening, it needs to be stopped.
Right.
Number
and if
one,
it's not, we need to.
Yeah. If it's not, then we need to put an end to the question behind it. Yeah.
That's fair.
I mean, for legitimate reasons. I mean, that is a health issue.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, other reasons too. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
normal human interaction that we do at school
Right.
anyways.
There might
So,
be some mental health stuff going on.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
I think I've got a better handle on what the school board does. Before we move on to
yeah.
some other hot button item-ish stuff, I guess one thing, and maybe you touched on this, is like things that you've seen success. Like, what if this is a job interview, right? What is a problem you've seen and a solution that you're like, hey, maybe it's something you've been a part of, or you're just like, hey, this was kind of an issue. You maybe talked about a couple issues and be like, we saw the issue,
Mhm.
we came up with a plan, we solved the problem, and now things are better. It could have been much worse. Do you know what I'm saying? Is
Yeah, I
there
mean, I
anything
think
specific
there's
you can think of that you're like, yeah, or maybe it's just, hey, we're doing pretty well, and I don't know.
well, I
Does
think
that make sense?
I mean, we have some processes in place that we didn't have before. I would say that. So we have, if a parent calls in, we have mechanisms to address those concerns or those questions. And often what happens if a parent calls in, we often it'll get distributed. Like if it's a special education, it will go to one of our staff members over special education and they will help address the issue. Right. So we're able to quickly solve those problems. I would say just realigning, getting back to that academic excellence, getting out of the social justice stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? To say it wasn't anywhere would just be false.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and getting back to just sound academic, you know, content. I think that's one of our big things. We have some schools that are doing incredible things. We actually here in locally,
Mm-hmm.
your intermediate school, Lindsay Danes, and I highlighted this in a recent op-ed with Deseret News, but she looks at the assessments of kids coming out of fifth grade, those that are below a certain point on their reading. They have an intensive sixth grade program, and the kids that go through that, by 90% of them by the end of their sixth grade year are reading on grade level.
Okay, like an
So you're
intervention.
talking, yeah, you're talking, and I guess my point in saying that is the refocus back into academic excellence has been something not just me but other board members have leaned into, and just saying, look, we're here at school, we have limited time, limited resources,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is the biggest bang for our buck, so to speak, and how can we support our educators in doing that? Um, One of the things I do get concerned with often at the legislature and other levels is we want schools to solve all problems. We want them to be part of everything, if that makes sense. So if there's anything in society that's going wrong, we think, oh, well, maybe the school should take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think what we've done is the one mission that the school has that we know that when kids are academically successful, they can more likely succeed. They have better outcomes when it comes to health, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to families in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the one thing we need to make sure we're doing well, that we are highly successful at. These other things are nice things, right? It's all this kind of fluff things going on. But if we can stay focused, I think we will provide a successful atmosphere for students.
So this would be the
So
something that I
standards, our mission and vision, um, even our assessments, right? Those things are kind of the things I'm talking about.
right, yeah, and so like this is the proper role of educational
Oh
government,
yes.
right? If you're looking at it from a federal level, the government can't protect life, liberty, and property if it's dealing with a bunch of other crap. The school, the school board, the schools can't do the fundamental job of teaching the children these basic foundational things, right? For younger grades, it's math and reading, and for as they get older,
Yeah.
deeper
It
math,
expands that. Yep.
science, history, civics, all that kind of stuff. If you're not focusing on that, then you're dealing with all this other stuff. And just like the federal government, if that's not your job, you're spending resources on those things that you may not actually have control over. Something that I've noticed, um, it, and one of the reasons I'm no longer a teacher is that I felt, well, part of it was I felt like I was a babysitter. I felt like much of trying. I felt much of my job was trying to be a parent,
Mm.
but I'm not equipped to be a parent for 30 kids, right? It's tough that some kids come from homes that are suboptimal. That's rough. I don't know what the solution there is. I don't know if that's your problem to solve. It's one that we got to figure out as a society. But that I felt like I couldn't address my job as a teacher of history, or whatever it was, because I had to deal with discipline problems that weren't being handled at
Yeah.
home, or I felt like I had to be the emotional support for a kid who wasn't getting it elsewhere. And so I don't know, is that part of what you're saying as far as
I
here's our excellence in
yeah.
academics, and as much as we'd like to solve those problems, teachers just don't have the resources. It's like police officers are supposed to um, enforce the law. They can't be the dads to all the boys that got in the bad place in the first place. Is
Yeah,
that,
although we are,
yeah,
right? I mean,
in some cases, right?
educators, there are, um, we are, we do take on some of, and I'm not saying a parent role,
Hmm.
but we do become, maybe a support,
Hmm.
and hopefully a support for families.
Right. And in some cases,
Yeah,
that's like, those are sometimes the best. Like,
yeah.
if they're not getting it at
But an
home, it is
educator,
good that they are getting it
mhm,
somewhere.
yeah.
But,
And I'll tell you, I'm just appreciative. I'll just share this experience for an educator for my son in third grade
hmm.
when we found out he was diabetic, but it was, and I don't know if you're familiar with diabetes, but a gradual onset of it can lead to having to go to the bathroom frequently
Hmm.
and hungry all the time. And this educator, we were noticing things too, and she was noticing things, and she allowed him, if he needed to go to the restroom, to go to right. It wasn't like you just went an hour ago, right?
Yeah.
It was he she was she allowed him to do that. And when we found out he had diabetes, it made sense, the things that were happening. But she supported us. Does that make sense?
Right.
Our educators do a good job of supporting. They should never replace a parent.
Right. There's issues
Right.
there.
And that's where we run into problems. This is, our families are too important
Hmm.
to just say, well, let someone else do that. We need to support our families, but our parents need to also know that this is important. Sending kids to school is an important part of the day, and that they then, they're a support. We're a support for each other.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
uh, but not a takeover.
Yeah, right. And that kind
Yeah.
of gets into this. And I don't know, again, this may not be your role at the state board, but talking about moral development and
Well, I would
where it comes, maybe where it
actually,
does
we
cross.
do have, I mean, we have civic standards, and we have, there's things, honesty, integrity. Those are things that in society, we, we should be supporting in every area, right?
Hmm.
Whether you're an educator or a librarian at the local library, if someone's being dishonest, we would want, the responsibility, that kind of thing.
Helping them follow the laws of the land, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
but you need to also we want our students to be aware of um, how our government's structured, how it functions, right? And why is there a need for checks and balances?
Mm-hmm.
What does the judicial piece do, and why is it important? Why is it important to have due process, right? We talked about our educators earlier. Why is that important? Should they be, have due process? And helping kids understand those key things that make our society function in a way that we can have many people from various backgrounds, various perspectives engage with one another and be able to be successful,
Going back
right?
to that
Yeah.
critical thing of there are things that we could be critical of our history and our system,
Yeah.
but also we should probably keep in context all of the other people in the world and what they're dealing with, and be like, well, is our problems,
Yeah.
maybe they are big compared to other places, but
They're real
we've always
problems,
got
right?
North Korea that we can look
Yeah.
at and be like, here's how that goes.
Yeah. But they're real problems. And if we know we
Yeah.
have a real problem, we look for solutions.
Right.
That's what Americans do, right?
Right.
That's what we do. We try to find solutions. Um, yeah.
So where does your job fit into that
Well,
aspect of?
we do have standards that we've set. We've set history standards, social studies standards over the last couple of years, and at every grade level, we've incorporated pieces of historical figures and stories, and then also we encourage them as educators to use stories about integrity, hard work, There's a variety of those listed in the code that we would encourage them to use and incorporate into their readings, right? Into their everyday application. So,
And the fidelity that teachers implement that with is more of a local issue. Would that be right?
that would be accurate.
Because
That would be
I know
accurate.
as a teacher,
Yeah.
there were a lot of things going back to what I was able
Yeah.
to do, not do is like not able to cover a fourth of some of those
Yeah.
standards. Is that something you look at and be like, okay, what can they feasibly
Over
actually
the
go over?
last, yes, as we've been looking at standards over the last little bit, we have tried to condense those. Fewer standards, but more intentional in what the content is or what the expectation is. Did we get it
You're
perfectly?
teaching the principle
Yeah.
of honesty. I don't need you to cover that for 7 weeks, but you need to cover this in
Right.
X amount of ways or
Right.
something like that.
Right. And then, of course, the example in the school setting, right? I think the adults set the example and the tone for the students.
Have honest teachers and
Right.
administrators.
Well, right. And if you're going to, if you're teaching kids to be responsible,
Mm-hmm.
then you set a timeline and you expect them to follow that timeline. That's how you do it. You may have to work with some families based on circumstances, but by and large, if you can set a clear expectation, I think you can help to raise that. Just teaching or having a little lesson on responsibility doesn't lead to responsible actions.
Right.
It may be at the forefront of their mind, but actually implementing things that require responsibility, writing down assignments or turning things in on time. Those create responsible actions.
Yeah, I'm laughing because
Yeah.
I thought of in junior high and high school, the planners that they gave us. And
yeah, how'd that work for you?
I use one now, but that was 20 years later.
Yeah, but you knew the benefit from it, right? I mean, they did. Yeah.
I don't know. It was junior high, and
I know
I'm glad
junior high
I'm
is
glad that there are people who love to teach them because I don't
love
know how
junior
much
high
I
kids.
did,
Yeah.
and I hated it when I was there.
Yeah.
In my episode with Representative Peterson, we kind of touched on that just a little bit. Like, man, that's rough, man. Send him to work on a farm or something for 3 years.
I love those kids. That's the perfect age for me. I really do enjoy it. But I think the older I get, the more I just enjoy people in general. I just find that, and I think there's been some circumstances in my life where I've a forgiveness type of a thing. We had a family tragedy a few years ago that really, you begin to value people. And I think it really hit me personal. I'm not out there. You're not going to see me as the noisiest board member on Facebook, right? When I say noisy, like I'm not out there. I think I may be generous, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, and maybe a little bit forgiving in that I allow people to have their opinions. Let's hear them, right? And less criticism. Where I think maybe 5-10 years ago I would have been critical of it. But instead it's allowing people to voice their thoughts, whether I disagree or not, whether I agree or not, maybe that's the better way. But not really as critical as I would have been maybe a few years ago. And it's allowing people to, own their actions maybe. And for me, like I said, I love what I do. I love engaging with, other legislators. I love thinking through policies. I love working with the parents. I love working with students. I just enjoy people. So, and I feel like that is one of the traits I think I bring to this office is that engaging with others and whether we agree or disagree, it's not like I'm closing the conversation down because of that. It's
help me understand where you're coming
yeah,
from.
and I may have a pretty heated debate. I like a good heated debate. I don't like to be, for me, to hyperinflate things or be dishonest about things is not really fair to the public. It's not fair to the education system, and it's not fair to other people. I some of the board members we have some pretty heated discussions over, and then I leave there going, oh, I never thought about it that way, right? And I still may stand my ground, say, nope, I'm still, this is where I stand. And that person may say, this is still where I stand. I'm like, okay, well, do we have a solution or not? And maybe we don't. Sometimes we'll just have to vote different. And that's okay too, right? And I don't think this is just me, but always voting consensus on things is not a good thing. Not like let's try to get consensus. But I would say that often if you can work with people, you can get to a point where you can get consensus on most of the items. So, like I said, we've got good people on the board doing really good things and being just thoughtful about what they're doing. Very intentional about things.
Thank you for listening. You can find more information on our Facebook page. And if you found this helpful, please leave a like and a comment. Remember, get informed, get involved, and turn to the Lord in all things. Cheers.